Vanakkam. Welcome to this course on classics in neuroscience. We have been looking at the foundations of the background of neurology, that is the history of how neurology developed into its own discipline, so that we can lay the foundation to study brain imaging. In this video, we will look at the early work that was performed at the Boston City Hospital in the neurological unit under the leadership of Stanley Cobb. Stanley Cobb became interested early on in the neural basis of epileptic seizures, and so he practically started what was perhaps the first neurological teaching unit, the Harvard Neurological Unit and the Boston City Hospital. He studied epileptic seizures, and he had this hypothesis regarding epileptic seizures, where he said that epileptic seizures were perhaps due to cerebral anoxia following cerebrovascular spasm. So, suddenly the loss of oxygen to the neurons in the brain is what perhaps causes the epilepsy, was the initial hypothesis. There are also other scientists like Edgar Adrian, William Lennox and others in collaboration with Frederick and Erna Gibbs and a whole bunch of other scientists who worked with Stanley Cobb to test a hypothesis that maybe seizures are due to changes in the brain, specifically changes in the cerebral neurochemistry. Also, this was around the time when EEG became very popular. So, Albert Grass was a technician who practically invented the multi-channel EEG system. Multiple recordings from the scalp became possible, and this later went on to become the Grass Instrument Company or the Grass Medical Devices Company, if one may say that. And also later a camera was integrated with the EEG, so that the recording from the oscilloscope could be recorded, could be viewed later, because otherwise in the good old days it was practically impossible to store the recordings that were being measured. So, the only way was the trace of the EEG will be going in an oscilloscope and people will be recording it using camera. This was also the Grass camera. It came to be called as a Grass camera, for example, in the good old days. Around the same time, scientists and physicians together with patients and patient caretakers formed the International League Against Epilepsy and the National Epilepsy League to support patients of epilepsy and also to support epilepsy research, because there was a great amount of stigma associated with this disease. So, epilepsy as a clinical entity came to be recognized at around the mid 20th century. It was around the same time when the Atlas of EEG, Atlas of Electroencephalography and the Epilepsy and Related Disorders were published. So, this led to a diagnosis, an improvement in the diagnosis of epilepsy in a very big way, but still there was no treatment available, there was no big advancement in terms of treatment. That significant or crucial advancement in the treatment of epilepsy came when it was found that barbiturates helped suppress the seizures, but there was a cost associated with it. We have discussed this in the previous set of videos when we discussed patient HM. That is, when you take these drugs, the patient becomes super drowsy and is practically just sleeping or completely incapacitated. He could not do anything, he or she cannot do anything else. So, Then Putnam and Cobb and their work essentially laid the foundation to the development of what later became the anti-epileptic drugs. So, Putnam continued this research in collaboration with another scientist, Houston Merritt, who continued to study, and they particularly focused on the phenyl derivatives of barbiturates at the Boston City Hospital, and they found that diphenyl hydantoin essentially helped in improving symptoms after epilepsy in a very big way without hurting the patient as much as the regular barbiturate treatment. So, a slightly improvement. So, this dilantin, it was recorded as the first drug that inhibits epileptic seizures in humans, and phenytoin is the another drug that was useful in anti-epilepsy drug or anti-epileptic drug therapy. Phenytoin was the other drug that was used. So, these discoveries of the anti-epileptic drugs essentially gave the neurologists far more credence, far more credentials and credence that patients could now approach the doctor and there will be some solution. Because otherwise, if you approach the neurologist and they say, oh, this is what is happening, this is what is observed, this is what is happening, this is perhaps what is going on within the brain, of what use is it for the patient? Because the patients are interested in knowing, is it going to be cured? If the answer is no, okay, then I have other things to focus on. So, they are interested in getting cured of their malaise, of their disease. So, the discovery of dilantin and phenytoin practically changed, was a game changer in the field of neurology, that brought neurology to the forefront in a very big way. That before that, neurology was at the back end when compared with, even when compared with psychiatry, for example. Between psychiatry and neurology, psychiatry was the more thriving department. Neurology was more academic in that sense until the development of these anti-epilepsy drugs. So, with this we come to the end of this video. In this video we looked at the work done in the neurological unit at the Boston City Hospital and the contributions of Stanley Cobb in putting together the first neurology department in the United States and the development of the anti-epileptic drugs dilantin and phenytoin, and how that was a game changer in the field of neurology. Thank you very much for your attention.